Did you know that over 48 million Americans get food poisoning every year and around 3,000 die from it? Most of those deaths are seniors. Why? Because as we age, our immune systems weaken. Something as simple as a stomach bug can become a hospital visit. And what's worse, some of that risk may be sitting right in your refrigerator. Yes, your fridge. The very place you trust to keep food safe might actually be turning certain foods toxic, especially if you're unknowingly storing the wrong things inside it. Most of us grew up thinking, when in doubt, refrigerate it. But what if that advice is not only wrong, it's dangerous? You may have heard of keeping milk or leftovers chilled, sure. But what about potatoes, bread, onions, garlic? What if I told you that these everyday items, things you might have in your fridge right now, can actually become harmful, especially for seniors? Let's explore why and what you can do instead. This simple change in your kitchen could literally protect your health or your life. Let's walk through some common foods you probably have in your fridge right now and why they absolutely shouldn't be there. First up, potatoes. You might think the cold keeps them fresh longer, but in reality, refrigerating potatoes triggers something called cold induced sweetening. That means the starch in the potato turns into sugar. And when you cook those sweetened potatoes, especially by frying or roasting them, it forms a chemical called acrylamide. That's a compound the World Health Organization says may increase cancer risk. For seniors already managing chronic conditions, that's not a risk you want to add to your plate. Next, bread. Now, this one surprises a lot of people. You stick it in the fridge thinking you'll stop it from going moldy. But the opposite happens. Cold temperatures actually dry out the bread and make the starch crystallize. That's why your toast suddenly tastes like cardboard. Plus, bread goes stale faster in the fridge than in a bread box or cabinet. So not only are you ruining the texture, you're wasting money. Third, onions. When you put onions in the fridge, the cold and moisture turn them soft and moldy. They lose flavor fast and can stink up your entire fridge. Worse, they can contaminate other foods with mold spores. Onions do best in a dry, dark, and well ventilated area. Think pantry, not refrigerator. Fourth, tomatoes. Refrigerating tomatoes breaks down their cell walls, making them mealy and flavorless. You've probably noticed this before, those mushy, tasteless tomato slices in your sandwich. That's what happens when they're chilled. For seniors especially, who may have reduced taste sensitivity, flavor matters. You want every bite to be enjoyable and nutritious. Fifth, garlic. This one's not just about taste, it's about safety. Storing fresh garlic in oil and putting it in the fridge seems smart, but it can actually create the perfect environment for botulism. That's a rare but deadly toxin, and seniors are especially vulnerable. If you love garlic, store it dry, whole, and out of direct light. Never refrigerate it in oil unless it's store bought and labeled as shelf stable. Sixth, coffee. Refrigerators are full of moisture, and coffee is like a sponge, it absorbs odors and flavors. Storing coffee beans or grounds in the fridge can ruin the taste and dull the aroma. Plus, cold doesn't preserve coffee freshness, it accelerates it going stale. Keep it in an airtight container at room temperature instead. 7. Honey. Here's a sweet surprise. Honey never spoils, and it actually preserves itself. But in the fridge, it can crystallize and become gritty. That gritty texture doesn't mean it's bad, it's just harder to use. Keep honey in a sealed jar in the cupboard, and it'll stay smooth and delicious for years. Eighth, Bananas. Cold breaks down the banana's cell walls, turning them brown and mushy in a hurry. Plus, it stops the ripening process, so if you refrigerate them too early, they stay tasteless. For best results, let bananas ripen on the counter and eat them before they spot. And finally, olive oil. Refrigerating olive oil makes it cloudy and thick. It doesn't ruin it, but it does change its texture and taste. If you're using olive oil for heart health or inflammation, common goals for seniors, you want it fresh and flavorful. Keep it in a cool, dark cabinet. So take a look at your fridge today. If any of these 9 items are chilling inside, it might be time to set them free. Now, you might be wondering, why exactly does cold ruin some foods? Isn't the fridge supposed to keep everything fresh? Well, here's what's really going on, and don't worry, I'll keep it simple. Let's start with potatoes. When they're exposed to temperatures below about 45 degrees Fahrenheit, that's typical fridge temperature, the starch in them starts breaking down into sugar. That's not a big deal on its own. But when you cook those sweetened potatoes, especially if you fry or roast them at high heat, it forms acrylamide, a chemical linked to a higher risk of cancer. For seniors with already sensitive systems, this kind of chemical exposure over time adds up. Now, for bread. Here's a term you might not hear every day: retrogradation. That's the process where starch molecules in bread reorganize and harden when exposed to cold. It's why bread stored in the fridge turns stiff and stale so fast. The cold temperature speeds up that process, so instead of keeping it fresh, it ruins it. With onions and garlic, the issue isn't just flavor, it's moisture. Onions are layered with water. In the fridge, condensation builds up, and the excess moisture invites a mold and soft spots. Garlic, on the other hand, has natural antibacterial properties, but when submerged in oil and placed in the fridge, it becomes a breeding ground for Clostridium botulinum, the bacteria behind deadly botulism. That's why garlic oil should only be refrigerated if it's commercially prepared with preservatives. Let's talk about tomatoes now. Their rich flavor comes from volatile compounds that develop best at room temperature. When they get too cold, those compounds break down. On a microscopic level, their cell walls start to rupture, leading to that mushy, watery texture we all hate. The colder it gets, the less flavor they retain. Coffee is another sneaky one. Coffee beans have tiny pores that absorb moisture and odors like a sponge. The humid air inside a refrigerator seeps into the beans and dulls their flavor. Instead of a bright, rich cup, you end up with a flat, musty brew. Honey is a natural sugar. It contains glucose and fructose. When exposed to cold, glucose starts to form crystals, turning your smooth honey into a gritty mess. This doesn't make it unsafe, but it's hard to spread and mix. Bananas? Their skin contains enzymes that react to cold by turning the peel brown prematurely. Inside, the fruit softens too fast and loses that firm texture. Also, bananas need warmth to properly ripen. The fridge literally halts the process, so if you put green bananas in the fridge, they'll stay green and tasteless. And olive oil? It's full of healthy fats, but like bacon grease or butter, it solidifies in cold temps. The fats clump up and make it look cloudy or chunky. It's not dangerous, but it's a pain when you're trying to drizzle it onto a salad or sauce some veggies. So, in short, cold air slows bacterial growth, but it doesn't work for every food. For some, cold actually speeds up spoilage, ruins texture, and even creates health risks. It's not about throwing out your fridge, it's about knowing what doesn't belong inside it. Okay, now that you know the fridge can actually harm some foods, let's talk about what you can do instead. Because the good news is, with just a few small changes, you can protect your food, your health, and maybe even your wallet. Let's start again with potatoes. The best place for them? A cool, dark pantry. Think of a brown paper bag in a cabinet, not too warm, not too cold. Definitely not next to onions, though. They release gases that cause potatoes to spoil faster. So keep those two apart. Next up, bread. The fridge speeds up staleness, but the freezer? That's a different story. If you have extra bread, freeze it in slices and toast them as needed. For short term use, a bread box or sealed bag on the counter will keep it soft and fresh for several days. For onions, the best spot is somewhere dry, dark, and well ventilated. A mesh bag in the pantry is perfect. And if you've already cut an onion, then it can go in the fridge, but only for a few days and always in a sealed container. Garlic loves the same kind of environment, dry and dark. Think countertop in a small bowl, away from sunlight and moisture. And remember, never make homemade garlic oil and stick it in the fridge without preservatives. It might smell delicious, but it could be dangerous. Let's move to tomatoes. Leave them right on the counter, stem side down. If they're already ripe, eat them within a couple of days. And if you've got overripe ones, make sauce. They're still great for cooking. Coffee? You want an airtight container in a dark cabinet, away from heat and light. The fridge makes your coffee taste flat because it absorbs other food smells. So don't store your beans or grounds there unless they're sealed very tightly. Honey is a natural wonder. It doesn't spoil, ever. All it needs is a tightly closed lid and a cozy cupboard. No fridge. If it crystallizes over time, just set the jar in warm water to bring it back to life. Bananas do best at room temperature. Hang them on a hook or rest them on the counter away from other fruits. Want a slow ripening? Wrap the stems in plastic wrap. Want to speed it up? Place them in a paper bag with an apple. Simple and effective. Finally, olive oil. Store it in a cool, dark cupboard away from the stove and sunlight. A tinted glass bottle helps block light. No need to refrigerate it unless your kitchen gets very hot. See, these aren't big changes, but they make a big difference. You're not just storing food better, you're protecting your health, preserving nutrients, and making every bite safer. And here's something powerful. If you've ever opened the fridge and thought, does this still look right? Trust your gut. When in doubt, it's usually time to toss it out. Let me ask you something personal. Have you ever opened your fridge and found something that made you pause? Maybe a loaf of bread that went moldy way too fast. A tomato that looked fine yesterday, but today it's mealy and dull. Or maybe a strange smell coming from something you thought was safe. You're not alone. These tiny kitchen habits, the way we store our food, can make a huge difference in our health, especially as we age. For seniors, a small mistake can lead to a hospital visit. A simple slip, like putting garlic oil in the fridge, could cause botulism, a word we don't hear often, but one that has serious consequences. But here's the good news. Now you know. You've just learned the foods that don't belong in your fridge, and more importantly, what to do instead. That knowledge alone can protect you and your loved ones from discomfort, illness, or worse. So now it's your turn. Go to your fridge today and take a peek. What's in there that shouldn't be? Bread? Potatoes? Maybe even your olive oil? Take a moment to remove just one of those items and store it the right way. One small change today can mean a healthier tomorrow. And if this video helped you, why not pay it forward? Drop a comment below and tell us what's the first item you're removing from your fridge today? And hey, let us know where you're watching from. We have viewers from all over the world, and it's so special to see how many of you care about living better, no matter your age. Like this video if it opened your eyes to something new. It might help someone else avoid a dangerous mistake. Share it with a friend, a neighbor, or even your adult children. You never know who needs this reminder today. And don't forget to subscribe for more weekly tips on senior health, natural remedies, and simple lifestyle changes that truly make a difference.